Rudolph and Donner's Christmas Adventure. On one of the coldest nights of the year, when the snowflakes sparkled like tiny diamonds, Santa's house was buzzing with excitement. Christmas was only a few days away. The elves were singing songs and nibbling on cookies, while Santa, with his notebook in hand, counted the presents that still needed to be packed. Just then, the doorbell rang. Ding dong, ding dong. A telegram. Santa opened it, raised his eyebrows, and sighed. "Oh, this is not good," he whispered. The telegram said that the train carrying the gift boxes had gone off the tracks. The presents might be delayed by a few days. And without those boxes, the children would not get their gifts on time. The whole world was waiting. So many children, so many smiles. "This must be fixed," Santa whispered to himself, giving himself courage. He sat in his big chair and thought for a long time. Suddenly, an idea lit up in his mind. If the train can't come to them, they will go to the train. But the train was far, very far, all the way past 8 snowy mountains, and the weather was cold and stormy. "I will send all the reindeer, except Rudolph," Santa decided, keeping the red-nosed reindeer close in case he was needed for the journey. 8 reindeer, 8 sleighs. That will be enough to carry all the boxes, he thought. After a short preparation, they stood proudly before him. Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, and Blitzen. Each one had their own magical sleigh, decorated with sparkles and stars, ready to fly into the night. "Fly fast, but be careful. And remember, each box carries someone's joy and wish," Santa told them. The reindeer lifted their heads proudly and, with a strong push, took off. In a moment, they were soaring into the sky, leaving a sparkling trail behind them in 8 shining lines. After a long flight, they reached the train. They found the boxes and the crew, thousands of colorful, shiny packages stacked in 5 cars. After lots of hard work, they filled the 8 sleighs to the very top. But sadly, many boxes were still left on the train. "We'll have to go back again," said Dancer. Together with the other reindeer, they flew back to Lapland. When they arrived, they told Santa how many boxes were left and that they would need to make another trip. Santa patted their heads and said, "Good job, my heroes. Rest now, and I will send Rudolph to get the rest." But Rudolph couldn't go alone, Santa thought. And it wasn't safe for a reindeer to travel such a long way by himself. "Who wants to go with Rudolph?" he asked. Donner stepped forward right away and signed up for another trip. This time, the mission was taken by Rudolph and Donner, who knew the way. They flew fast and safely, quickly crossing the 8 mountains, and soon they reached the rest of the presents. After loading the last decorated box, they started back. But no one expected the weather to change. As they flew, the sky grew darker and darker. The snowstorm got stronger every minute. On the way back to Lapland, the snow fell so thick that they could no longer see the sky. The wind swirled in strong gusts, and the sleighs shook and bounced on all sides. "I can't see anything," shouted Donner. "Let's land and find shelter," answered Rudolph, whose nose shone brighter than ever, but even his light couldn't shine through the thick snow. They carefully lowered the sleighs and started moving slowly through the deep snow. After about half an hour walking along the mountain, they came to a cave. The cave looked like the perfect shelter from such a blizzard. They went inside, tired, wet, and cold. It was very quiet, maybe too quiet. On the cold, rocky floor, there were paw prints, big, deep, and very fresh. Rudolph walked around curiously and saw several wolf beds, with bits of leftover food scattered nearby. "We are in a wolf den," said Rudolph. The wolves were not home, but in such a storm it was only a matter of time before they returned. No one knew how far from home they were. "We have to block the entrance," said Donner firmly. He quickly pushed the 2 sleighs in front of the cave's opening, making a small barrier. They agreed that Donner would stay with the sleighs, and Rudolph would try to find another exit from the cave in case the wolves came back. After wandering a little in the dark, Rudolph saw a thin ray of light. At the end of the cave, there was an opening, tall, but very narrow. The reindeer could squeeze through it, but it was too tight for the sleighs with all the gifts to fit. Rudolph went back and explained to Donner that if they got into trouble, he would lure the wolves toward himself, while Donner would move the sleighs far away and up high. Soon, the snowstorm began to calm, and the reindeer were ready to go. But through the thick snow, they could hear the crunching of paws. The wolves were coming. The smell of the reindeer had drawn them, and they circled the cave, whose entrance was blocked by the sleighs. The wolves were clever and knew there was another exit. Half of them went to the back of the cave, while the other half stayed in front of the blocked entrance. Rudolph ran with magical speed and reached the back opening. He ran across the snow, and the wolves immediately chased him. Rudolph ran in a circle and headed toward the front of the cave, leading all the wolves on a chase so that Donner could move the sleighs to a safe place. The wolves chased him relentlessly, closing in from all sides. But soon, Rudolph appeared at the front of the cave and lured all the wolves toward himself. He ran across the snow, and the wolves thought they would catch him any moment, not knowing that this magical reindeer could always fly into the sky and escape. Meanwhile, the cave entrance was free, and Donner moved the sleighs, one by one, to the highest safe spot. When Rudolph saw that Donner and the sleighs were safe, he jumped into the air, changed direction, and flew to the top where Donner had placed the sleighs. The wolves were left stunned. Rudolph reached Donner, they quickly hooked up the sleighs, and together they flew home. While flying through the sky, Donner suddenly sneezed. The sneeze caused an avalanche that started rushing everything in its path. The snow tumbled, and everything nearby was in danger. The wolves, seeing the avalanche, realized they were also in danger and panicked back into the cave. A few hours later, the reindeer arrived at Santa's palace. They unloaded all the boxes, and once every gift was packed, they gathered for a celebration with cookies and milk, cheering for the success of their mission.
Santa Claus and the Lost Ember. Once, 2 weeks before Christmas, the big bad flu knocked on the doors of Santa's palace and made many of the toy-making elves very ill. The ill elves were coughing, sneezing and quite exhausted. They spent all day lying in bed drinking hot tea in the hope they would get well soon. But the flu was very contagious and, apart from the elves, it affected all the reindeer except Rudolph, who Santa sent on an errand. Rudolph arrived and brought all the necessary Christmas gift boxes, but Santa was very worried about having enough toys for all those decorative boxes. He worried because many of the hard-working elves were ill, and there was less and less time to finish all the toys by Christmas. All the healthy elves worked constantly, painstakingly, day and night, to get the toys ready, but it was not enough. Daniel and Marco were the elves in charge of repairing Santa's sleigh, and every year they made it better and faster. But this year, because the reindeer were ill, Marco and Daniel had to find a way to make the sledge fly at the same magical speed as it would if all the reindeer were pulling it. There was only one solution: a little magic had to be used, an ancient gift that Santa had received from his great-great-grandpa Claus. It was 3 magical embers. Great-great-grandpa had received the magic embers as a gift from a wizard as a gesture of gratitude for all the gifts he had received as a child. The magic embers drew their strength from each other, and as long as they were next to each other, they burned stronger and stronger, creating magical power. There was one danger though: if one of the embers was separated from the others for more than a day, all the embers would lose their magic, go out and transform into ordinary pebbles. After taking the embers, Marco and Daniel immediately got to work. First, they made an engine that would work with the help of the magical power of the embers, and then they secured a spot in the sledge where the embers would burn safely and power the sledge with a magical drive so that the sledge could fly at full speed across the whole world on that most beautiful night. But there was no end to Santa's troubles. With so many elves ill, He calculated that he wouldn't be able to finish all the toys by Christmas night and decided to ask Marco and Daniel for help. He called them to his room, sat down in his comfortable chair, sighed briefly and drew 2 candy canes from his pocket. Santa told Daniel and Marco that he needed help in the toy workshop and that whoever drew the shorter candy cane would have to come and help him finish the toys. Upon hearing that, the wise elves hid their hands behind their backs and didn't want to pick the candy canes. Santa, however, kindly smiled at this and explained that without the finished toys neither he nor the sleigh would fly, which meant that many children would be left with broken hearts and unfulfilled wishes. Daniel did not remain indifferent. He reached for the candy canes in Santa's hand and picked the one held in Santa's right hand. The candy cane was whole, which meant that Marco would have to go and help Santa. Marco got a little angry and didn't want to leave the work around the sledge, but still decided to help as much as he could. Marco worked side by side with Santa at a great speed, made toys as if he had been making them his entire life and realized that it was not so bad being the helper of the most beloved Santa. The day before Christmas all the toys were ready. Santa Claus energetically and excitedly filled the sleigh with beautifully wrapped presents as if it were his first Christmas. After filling it, he jumped into the sledge and set off with Rudolph. But, while working on the toys, Marco forgot that one of the magic embers was not properly attached to the sledge and there was a chance that the ember would fall out. On takeoff, that's exactly what happened. An ember fell off the sledge and onto the floor of the workshop. Santa Claus did not feel anything went wrong and took off completely carefree, while Rudolph ran across the sky and the sleigh flew perfectly. But Marco, going to the workshop, saw the lost ember and got very scared for Santa, the sleigh and the presents. He took the ember, placed it in a box and hurried to catch up with them in his little jet-powered sledge. Santa's sleigh flew for half an hour, then the 2 embers slowly began to go out, and the sleigh started to lose its power and speed and began to fall. It descended very slowly, and Rudolph felt he did not have enough strength to keep it in the sky. So, in no time the sledge landed in the thick snow and got stuck. Rudolph tried to pull it out, but the sledge wouldn't budge. In 10 minutes, the heating in the sleigh stopped working and Santa started to get very, very cold. He shivered from the cold but didn't know what was wrong with the sledge. He walked around it, and peered at the sledge, but did not notice where the problem was. For a moment he thought that this Christmas would be the worst in history. He imagined newspaper headlines saying that the famous grandpa did not exist and that it was all make-believe. He turned even sadder remembering that children would no longer believe in him and that next year they wouldn't even write him letters wishing for presents. His train of thought was interrupted by a loud sound in the sky, quickly followed by Marco with his sledge. He landed and went to Santa Claus. In the box, he carried the third, the lost ember. He placed it in the sledge and fastened it well. Now, the 3 embers were together again and were once again powering each other. In about 10 minutes, all the embers flared up and the sledge began to warm up. Santa hugged Marco and decided to break a Christmas rule which surprised the brave dwarf. Santa told him that he would reward the little hero for his bravery by taking him along on a magical adventure, to be good company and help him get all the toys to the homes of all children in the world on time, children who impatiently awaited most generous Santa, leaving him milk and cookies. The sledge charged up, and Santa Claus and Marco jumped into it and flew around the world bringing gifts to all the children on Earth. The Bunny and the Magical Snowman. In one little forest, between the roots of a huge century-old oak tree, a small snow-white bunny with gray tail had made its home. Every day, the bunny would hop through the woods, gathering tiny roots, hay, twigs, and seeds to prepare for the first snow day and stay comfy and cozy at home. In its bunny hole, it arranged a pantry for food, and even after filling it to the brim, it felt assured that it would have enough food until the first day of spring. One day, searching through the forest, the bunny unexpectedly reached its end. A tall and long fence of wooden rods stood in front of him. The bunny was curious to find out what lay behind the fence, so it started digging a tunnel underneath. After digging and wriggling through, the bunny found itself in a garden with all kinds of vegetables: lettuce, carrots, beets, leeks, pumpkins, and many other delicious things it had never seen before. Happily, it immediately hopped towards the biggest lettuce in the garden. It nibbled, crunched, and in no time bit off the lettuce from the stem and started rolling it back towards its burrow. However, when it reached the fence, the bunny realized that the tunnel was too narrow for such a big lettuce, so it had to widen it. Sighing sadly, it got to work. It dug and dug, and even after getting quite tired, the tunnel became wide enough to fit the lettuce. The bunny rolled the lettuce through the tunnel, but now a whole forest stood in front of it. It rolled and rolled almost the entire day, until it reached its home by nightfall. When it was time to bring the lettuce into its burrow, the bunny realized that the lettuce was too big for the entrance of its bunny hole. The bunny thought and decided to cut it into pieces. Throughout the night, it nibbled on the leaves of the lettuce and arranged them in its pantry. When done, it entered its burrow, lay on its little bed, covered itself with a knitted blanket, and fell asleep from exhaustion. It slept through the entire day and the following night. The bunny woke up the next morning still very tired, every muscle aching, and realized that handling vegetables required a lot of work. It decided that it's better to get carrots from the garden. The next morning, the sun shining brightly, the bunny hopped to the garden fence, wriggled through the tunnel, and when it emerged, it was in shock. The garden was empty, all the vegetables were harvested, and the ground was completely overturned. The little bunny sat down, sighed deeply, and looked disappointedly into the empty garden. Suddenly, it spotted some carrots. It immediately ran towards them, but a strange, invisible wall hit its nose. The carrots were inside, and it was outside. The bunny wiggled its nose left right, and began thinking about how to overcome the invisible barrier. It went back home and started thinking, trying to figure out what to do since it had never seen a window before. Tired from thinking, it fell asleep. In the morning, a strong light and the scent of winter woke it up. It hurried outside and saw that snow had fallen overnight, and winter had arrived. So, if it wanted a peaceful and beautiful winter with enough food, it would have to fill its pantry in the next few days. Without thinking, it came back to the garden once again. On snow it spotted 3 snowballs arranged like a person, with an old pot as a hat, a red scarf around the neck, a broom on one side, little pieces of charcoal as eyes, and a carrot as a nose. A snowman. Happily, the bunny went to the snowman, grabbed its nose, put the carrot in its mouth, and started running quickly towards its home, as if being chased by wolves. It entered its burrow, placed the carrot in the pantry, and went back outside to gather some berries. The next day, the bunny went to the garden again and found another carrot on the snowman. It grabbed it and went back to its home. And so, for several days, the bunny visited the garden, stealing the snowman's nose every day. What kind of magic is this? Wondered the bunny, wiggling its pink nose left right. Then, it hopped to the snowman, took the carrot again, and placed it in the pantry after running with it. When the bunny noticed that its pantry was full and had enough food for the entire winter, it was delighted. The next morning, the bunny decided to visit the magical snowman again and thank it for all the carrots. Carrying a colorful pot it had found in the forest, the bunny went to the magical snowman, who seemed to enjoy such fashionable accessories. Upon reaching the garden, the bunny saw the snowman once again with a carrot nose. With immense gratitude, the bunny left the pot beside the snowman. It wiggled its nose left right, smiled, and hopped back to its warm burrow, full of food.
The Big Giant. Way up in the mountains, Above the clouds, there lived some giants in big warm caves. One of these giants was named Gore. He was very big and had a long red beard. He wore fuzzy clothes and big fuzzy boots. When he walked, the whole mountain would shake. Gore had a nice cave home. He made special shelves in his walls to keep his food, his plants, and his books. He loved to read. Deep in his cave, he had a cozy bedroom. It was warm when it was cold outside, and nice and cool in summer. Gore worked very hard. He dug tunnels in the mountain and found lots of gold. He used this gold to buy food and clothes from the people who lived in the village below. Every summer, these people would climb up the mountain to bring things to the giants. There was a big lake on Gore's mountain. In summer, it had lots and lots of fish. Gore would catch fish all summer long. He dried them to save for winter. He liked to make yummy soup with the dried fish. It was his favorite food. One day, while Gore was fast asleep in his bed, some hungry wolves sneaked into his cave. They were very quiet and very smart. They knew they were in a giant's home, so they tiptoed around. The sneaky wolves took all of Gore's food, even his dried fish. A few hours later, Gore woke up. He sniffed the air like a big dog. "Huh," he said. He got up and went to check his food. Oh no! The wolves had taken everything. He ran outside to look for them, but they were long gone. Gore went back to his cave and sat down to think. He decided to go fishing in the frozen lake the next morning. So he tried all day to catch fish, but he couldn't catch any. That night, Gore went to bed very hungry. He decided to go to the village the next day to buy food. In the morning, he got up early. He made some hot tea with snow. Then he put on his warm clothes, took his bag of gold, and his special rope with 4 hooks. The snow was very deep, taller than most houses. Gore's feet kept sinking in the snow, so he had to walk very slowly. As he went down the mountain, the snow got less deep. He was in such a hurry that he didn't see he was walking right into a swamp. Suddenly, his feet got stuck. The more he tried to get out, the more he sank. The swamp was full of special sand that pulls you in when you move. But Gore was clever. He took his rope and threw it around a big tree branch. He tied the rope around his middle and tried to pull himself out. But he was so big that the tree started to crack. He knew he had to stay very still. "Help! Help!" He called out loudly. He hoped someone from the village would hear him. Soon, a little girl with pink cheeks peeked from behind a tree. She smiled and hid again. Then she peeked out and asked, "Who are you?" "I'm the giant from the mountain." "I'm Anna," she said, still hiding behind the tree. "Why are you so big?" Said the giant, thinking hard. "So I can reach all the chestnuts in the tall trees." "Ooh, I love chestnuts," said Anna. "Me too," said Gore with a big smile. "Can I help you?" asked little Anna. Gore smiled and asked Anna to go home and tell her mom and dad that the big giant was stuck in the swamp. "Okay," said Anna, and she ran home. Very soon, lots of people came from the village with their horses. They threw ropes to Gore and the horses helped pull him out. Gore told them about the wolves taking his food. He asked if they could spare some food to last until spring. The kind villagers brought him lots of food. Gore was so happy and thankful. Before he left, he gave little Anna a big hug. He secretly put some pieces of gold in her coat pocket. Then he said goodbye to everyone, picked up all his food, and walked back up to his home on top of the mountain.